Good morning, Dina. I see you're going to talk with us about the GRI reporting system, which sadly is not sufficiently used in tourism. I'm delighted to see that you've been applying it to the Expo. Just for those of you who've not been listened or seen one of these interviews before with Dina, Dina Storey is the Director of Sustainability Operations across the whole of the Expo site, and there are already 3 other videos which you should watch if you're interested in what Dina has to say here. Dina and I share a passion about sustainability, but one of the things which is top of the list, I think, for both of us, Dina, is an absolute commitment to transparent reporting, because you and I think, agree that there's been way too much greenwashing in the tourism and travel sector historically, and it's really time to move on beyond that. So I'm really excited to hear what you've got to say this morning about how you've applied GRI reporting principles to the Expo. So good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well.
So GRI reporting is very important to us. And for those of you who have not heard the term GRI, it's a global reporting initiative, which focuses on a standardized way of reporting on sustainability's triple bottom line: economic, environmental, and social. And the reason for the standardization and the reason for reporting about sustainability is to create that transparency and hence that credibility. In the past few years, we've actually issued 2 sustainability reports, 2018 and 2019. And due to COVID, we are about to issue our next report, but it's going to be a 15-month report, which includes the first 3 months of 2021, January, February, and March. So the 15-month report will be issued very soon, and hopefully it will also show our progress, as well as the way that we reacted to COVID. What were our policies and procedures in reacting to COVID? And this is, of course, very important, because it also sets a precedent for anyone who is any event, mega event, or any tourism sector that may again go through some kind of crisis, because we put policies and processes in place, and we implemented them, and then we measured the success of these. So going back to GRI reporting, it's very important for us to create a legacy. And one of the legacies is ensuring that all of our information, of course, is out there. Our first sustainability report and our second are on the website. And then if you need, and the new one will be on our website very soon, so you will be able to see it and understand what we're doing at Expo. And then with regards to our stakeholders input is very important, and that includes our employees, that includes the leadership, that also includes our external stakeholders, our visitors, and our volunteers. So when we started doing our sustainability report, we wanted to understand what other mega events are doing. So of course we benchmarked against, for example, the Milan 2015, and these are just examples, by the way, because we looked at many other events. We looked at the World Cup, we looked at the Tokyo Olympics 2020, we looked at the way that London 2012 reported, and then we took that, and then again we tailored it, we customized it, and we came up with the way to, within the standardization, that we present this. So we actually reported in 2019 on 25 material topics. These are the topics that are important for Expo. And the material topics aren't chosen by us, they're chosen by our stakeholders. So we have to hold workshops in order to understand what are the topics important to our internal and external stakeholders. And based on that, we identify, for example, for the 2019 report, the most important topic was actually procurement practices, for example, water, energy, accessibility is one of them, local communities, how the Expo is interacting with the local communities, innovation, emissions, and so on and so forth. So this report that is on the website for 2019 was verified by the Global Reporting Initiative body. And that verification gives us another level credibility. And for us, that's very important. We also integrate case studies in there. So what have we been doing that don't fall into the standardized reporting practice that we think need to be highlighted or need to be presented to the world? So that's another added benefit of this. So when we started the GRI reporting process, we go through, as I said, specific requirements, the stakeholder engagement, the materiality workshops, the data collection and verification, the content production, and then, of course, the report design, and then after that, it gets approved and it gets published. And that process is, again, a standardized process. And all of the organizations, be it public or private, report on that standardized process. The way that we've broken down our sustainability report is we always break it down on how we report on the data under three main topics or three main pillars. Integrate, how we integrate sustainability into the Expo. Impact, what kind of impact are we making? And inspire, that's the innovation, the health and safety. What are we doing at Expo to make the life of the employees and the workers better? At the optimism survey, which we have going out to understand people's optimism, people's feedback on Expo, and so on and so forth. And of course, we talk about the legacy, and then we link everything, all of the indicators that we have identified to the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is the structure of our reporting process.
What seems to me to be unusual, could we just go back slightly?
Yeah.
What seems to me to be unusual here is the emphasis you're placing on integration and inspiring, because I mean, clearly impact is critical to this, but the notion that you're trying to integrate this into a system that works and in a sense changing the whole ecosystem of the way in which the business of the Expo works seems to me to be quite different. And then the inspiring objective is about engaging more and more people in this, isn't it? This is an aspiration to inspire change beyond the UAE.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So beyond the UAE, but also making sure that all of this information from an inspiration perspective is captured and presented in the best possible manner. And then, of course, the link to the Sustainable Development Goals is quite important, and it's actually very new. Previously, people would report using the GRI reporting, but wouldn't necessarily link it to the Sustainable Development Goals and the sub-indicators of the Sustainable Development Goals, which are quite important, because then what we're doing is taking the standardized process of sustainable reporting and then seeing how they apply to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
Let's just remind everybody who's listening to this, Dina, just how big the Expo is.
Yes.
How many buildings?
Well, we have, I don't even know the number of buildings, to be honest with you, but it's a big site. It's about double the size of Monaco.
Yeah, so I mean, we're effectively talking about a destination in its own right, aren't we?
Yes.
Because it's got everything on site.
Yeah, double the size of Monaco. I mean, that's basically how big it is. The number of buildings, I mean, I know the number of our buildings, but I don't know the number of, add to that the pavilions, and then add to that all of the service buildings, and it's an entire ecosystem. It's a mini city.
It's a mini city, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think people need to understand the scale of this. This is not being done for one hotel or a hotel chain. It's much more complex than that. Thanks, Dina. Do go on.
Just some of the key achievements that I'd like to discuss. We are on track actually to achieving the LEED certificate for 121 buildings on site, and that's the permanent structures. So all of the permanent structures will be LEED Gold and above, and that's very important for us.
And you just said all of the permanent structures?
Yes.
Oh, that's what you meant?
Yes, that is what I meant.
I just wanted everybody to hear you said that, that's all. Just want to emphasize it.
Exactly, and that includes the sustainability pavilion that is on track to getting the LEED Platinum rating. That also includes the UAE pavilion. That includes, as I said, all of the permanent structures around the site that will stay, of course, for legacy. So we wanted to ensure that what stays for legacy, that what stays for legacy from a construction perspective is sustainable.
Sure.
And that is always in alignment with Dubai receiving actually in 2019 the LEED Platinum for cities rating. And that's the first time a city has received that because of the vast number of LEED Platinum buildings that are available in Dubai. And this is something a lot of people don't know. And I think it's very important to understand that the UAE is going towards that sustainability infrastructure, and that there are specific strict guidelines that need to be followed, not just by us, but for the UAE and for Dubai.
Dina, you know what I'm going to say, but part of the problem is that the UAE has been reluctant to really to describe and to promote its sustainability credentials, and I hope that the Expo will be a change in that way as well, and that once the Expo has been the success I'm sure it will be, there will be more confidence in the UAE to talk about what's been achieved here, because it is something quite remarkable, I think.
But I also think the UAE is presenting itself. I mean, we have Dubai Shams, the largest photovoltaic solar farm out in the desert. We have so many things, and I think the more we talk about credibility and we talk about transparency, I believe that reporting and bringing all of these things forward, and the UAE is doing that, Dubai is doing that. I just feel that the more we talk about it, the more we bring it to life, the more we present numbers like these, the better people understand. I mean, the LEED Platinum rating for cities was presented by the CEO of the US Green Building Council to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid. So it's a big deal for an entity such as the US Green Building Council to present this rating to an entire city. So
Dina, just to ask you again, the name of that site out in the desert that you mentioned?
The US Green Building Council.
The site out in the desert which is generating electricity.
Dubai Shams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dina, I come to Dubai quite a lot.
Yes.
And I'd not heard of it before. Now, you can blame me, and that's fine. But I'm actually very interested in these things, and that's what I mean. I think there's an awful lot going on in Dubai that people don't know about if they don't live there. Yeah, I would really welcome Dubai talking even more about what it is achieving, because we need to challenge others to do it as well.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And hopefully next time you come, I'll take you out there. It's an absolutely great place. It's open for visitors. You can even cycle by it if you want to. There's a cycling track right by it. So,
Dina, I rest my case. I'm either profoundly deaf and ignorant, or Dubai needs to make more of what it's achieved. One of those must be true.
Yeah, absolutely. So just so that I can explain to you as well what we're doing in terms of the legacy of the Expo site. So we're looking at establishing the foundations for a WELL community standard certification. And we're doing that by ensuring the site itself pre-legacy is sustainable. And for those of you who don't know about the WELL standard, it's actually a new standard, and we're on track to hopefully achieving that post-Expo. And focus for the WELL standard is not just about the buildings, but about the well-being of the people who are inhabiting this space or inhabiting this community or these buildings. So there's a focus on air quality and water, nourishment, light, community, mindfulness. So the color schemes, the amount of greenery, all of these fall under this WELL community standards. And we are on track to doing that because we built the foundation of the Expo, or the foundation of the legacy of the Expo as a sustainable site. So for legacy, this is what we will be looking at. And again, this information is available in our sustainability report, and our goals and aspirations, and how we are on track to achieving them is also available in the report. So I want to give you some examples of some of the achievements. We measure our carbon footprint, but also we look at our materials that we use. So 89.2% of materials follow our sustainable guidelines, material guidelines. And the sustainable material guidelines are important to the Expo in terms of building. And the reason for that is because we have to make sure that the materials that we're using don't have any, are not overly carbon emissions intense, or have materials that are unhealthy for the people who are using them, including glues and so on and so forth. So they must have a lower embodied carbon. They must be sourced environmentally and socially responsible. All source materials are certified through one or more of the global certifications. So we need to see those certifications, and they must make sure that they don't hinder the environmental indoor quality of the structure, so to speak. So that's just one example of how we are reporting on some of the products. Another example is waste. So during 2019, we looked at waste in a very different way. We looked at it as a resource, and that's very important. So our waste target is actually 85% diversion from landfill as a minimum. By the end of 2019, we'd achieved 92% waste diversion. And that is astounding if you're looking at construction waste. So we managed to reuse and recycle 291,000, almost 0.5 tons of waste. And that's, I mean, you can see it on the screen, and that's 133 times as heavy as Al Wasl Dome, which is the dome that is at the Expo site, and 2,430 times as heavy as a blue whale. So just to give you some context about the amount of waste that we looked at and that we diverted, 92% of our waste was diverted during construction.
That is a very, very high diversion rate.
Absolutely. And the details of that, of course, as I said, are in the report, but this is just a high-level overview of what we've achieved. And for example, our focus on ecology is very important. And why ecology? Our animals, our fauna and flora on site. So 92% of the landscape is native and adaptive, and that reduces our water impact, but it also gives us the capability to highlight the importance of native and adaptive plants. I mean, the palm trees and the gaff tree and so on and so forth. 100% of our landscape is managed without the use of chemical pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers. Again, that is very important for us. We rescued over 20 different types of animals, including falcons, spiny-tailed lizards, honeybees. We even actually get honey from those honeybees we rescued, baby hares, reptiles, and all kinds of things. So again, we report on that. We actually put all of that and we report on it. If the animal is injured, we take the animal to the vet and so on and so forth. That includes, of course, cats and dogs and other animals that might be stray, and we managed to rehome these animals. And again, that's very important to us.
Is that a real, Dina, just to go back to one.
Sorry. Yes.
Is that a real photograph?
Yes, that is a real photograph.
It is extraordinarily beautiful for that combination of a man-made environment reflecting the natural trees of the region. I think that's
absolutely
extraordinary bringing to life of the concept that you're talking about here, with that balance between the natural and the built environment. Looks very beautiful.
Thank you. It is beautiful, and hopefully you'll get to see it. And as I said, as you said, the combination between the built and the natural environment is absolutely quite important. And I think what is also important is these trees, or this in the native and adaptive plants, also provide shading and provide a cooling factor that will stay long after the expo closes its doors. And I think that's also quite important for us.
Dina, just to come back to my earlier point, at the risk of being slightly boring, this just gives a completely different impression of Dubai, because if I think about the images that I see in the tourist brochures and the promotion for Dubai, much of it is of high-rise buildings. This is just a completely different, much more traditional. I know it's all very high-tech and it's all very modern, but it's much more in the vernacular style of what Dubai would have been 50 years ago. And it's really, for me, it's really nice to see that combination of the extremely modern, but the scale and the trees and even the buildings are, they echo the vernacular style of buildings in the region, don't they?
They do, absolutely. But we also look at design, at the design of the buildings from a sustainable lens, and hence passive design elements to reduce energy. You know, there is glass, of course, but there's not as much glass. The buildings are built a certain way, you know, you see the shade structures here, and that creates wind tunnels, that creates the capability to have shade in a desert environment. So yes, of course, Dubai has amazing high rises, and they are all, and a lot of them, by the way, are efficient. But we wanted to show the UAE heritage, so to speak, but blend that with a smart city capability. So the city, the Expo is a smart city.
Yeah.
We monitor everything on a real-time basis, and that includes our irrigation is monitored. So everything is interconnected, and we have the capability to not just monitor, but to report on all of these matters.
Yeah. Thanks, Dina.
Thank you.
That's a fascinating introduction. Please carry on.
I will talk a little bit more about the social aspect of sustainability. As I said previously in the report, we actually report on the social, environmental, and economic of the Expo, impact of the Expo. And so for the social, it's very important for us to also know that 51.8% of new hires in 2019 were women. I mean, the Expo is led by Her Excellency Reem Al Hashimi. The gender topic is very, very important for us. And so we report on that. We had over 90% of the contracts have been made for companies registered in the UAE. So the locality that has an economic impact as well.
Right.
And then 5% of the contractors awarded during 2019 were SMEs. And as we move through to this next report, you're going to see the new numbers for these as well. So basically, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is create the credibility by ensuring that we report at a global level, and by ensuring that we transparently show not just the visitors, but the world what we are doing. And I think this is the end of my...
Dina, I think you and I will probably do some more interviews during the Expo. But I think when the sustainability report comes out at the end, you and I should plan to have a longer conversation about the actual outcomes of this in order to challenge the world to do better.
Yes.
I hope very much that the leadership being shown by the UAE and by all the people who are working for the Expo will bring a change, because as we said at the beginning, transparent reporting now is absolutely vital if as a species we are to make the progress that we need to make in order to enable us to continue to live on this planet. We've really got to make more progress more quickly, haven't we?
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Dina, thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure many people will be absolutely fascinated by what you've been able to share with us this morning. So thank you very much.